Alright, let's get to displaying these points. So, I'm going to go ahead and delete my other two prefabs here because I have just the one that we're going to use for testing and it's ready to go. So maybe I'll move this. No, I like it right there. That's good. Alright, so the first thing that we need for our script is we need somewhere to display our score. So for that, we're going to need a canvas for all of our UI stuff. So I'm going to drag this back out for a second. Make sure your resolution over here, we're going to do a 16:9 ratio. And in my hierarchy, I'm going to Control S to save. I'm going to right click UI, and I'm going to go ahead and click text. And what that's going to do is it's going to create a canvas for us and text. And you can kind of see it over here in the bottom. Now, to actually see this, if we hover our mouse in the scene view, we can press F to frame it. And then here you can see our text. We go over to our inspector, and let's change the color from gray. Let's make this a nice white. And maybe we'll center our... No, we'll leave it left align for now. And you'll see why. We're going to move our box, but we want our score to be left aligned. And maybe we'll go ahead and make this from a normal to bold. And what we'll do is click our center middle, this rect transform icon for our anchor presets. And we're going to click the top one here, and if we zoom out of our canvas, you'll see it actually put the anchor points here. What we want to do is actually move it, so we're going to hold down Alt and then click it, and then it'll move it all up into the corner. Now it's really hard to see. We're going to go ahead and move this down a little bit, and then on the right a little bit over. Now it's only hard to see right now because of our sky, which is going to change. So what we could do is even under our text, let's see, we're going to call this, display points, and then we can right click under that and do a UI image, and this image is going to put this behind it. We could just go ahead and click our rect transform. We can click 2D even, so it's kind of flat. So the first thing that we want to do is change the color to maybe a black is fine for now. You just put that in here, and we don't have really a sprite per se for this, but if we click the color box again at the bottom, we have the alpha, so we can kind of make this a little bit more see-through if we wanted. And you notice we can't see our text because it's actually on top, so we can move our image to the canvas, and we could put our display parented to that. So our image here, let's see. So that's one way of doing it. For now, what we should do is maybe just leave it here for the moment until we get some more UI stuff. And just so we can see it, we can change the color to a, say, a black color. And we can maybe increase our font size to 16. Now for our score, we'll go ahead and type in zeros 4 times so you can see it here in the corner. There we go. Now, if we go back to our player, we just select our player, you'll see we have our display points text, which doesn't, basically our variable for display points doesn't know where to actually send that data. So what we're going to do is drag our display points text right into this text field. And we could do display points, just rename this text, so we know not to be confused with the name. So our display points data is sending it to this text. Let's go ahead and open up our player controller script, and let's create another script. In this script, we're going to name this coin pickup. Hit enter. Also go ahead and open up the coin script. And before we forget, let's go ahead and select our coin here. Where is our coin? I'm going to get out of 2D mode, click the 2D button. We have our pickup. And we could rename this for now, coin pickup. We've got our rotator script. You can click the 3 dots even, and you can see you can move down if we want to do that. It's going to tell us to open up the prefab first. Then we can go ahead and move down. So now we have our sphere collider, and then we have our rotator script underneath that. And I'm going to go ahead and drag my coin pickup. And it didn't save the name. That's fine. We'll go ahead and type in coin pickup there, just so it's clear. And if you don't have autosave on, which I turn off to save memory based on what Unity says that it can be a resource hog, so we'll just click save. Yes, rename file. Awesome. So we have it rotating, which we can use. Now we're going to create a coin pickup script. So we'll open up that coin pickup script. And let's go ahead and delete the start and update method. And what we want to do is create a variable that we can use to assign different point values. Maybe we have one coin, but maybe we want to have a bag of coins. So in this case, for now what we can do is go ahead and serialize field to make it show in the inspector. It's going to be whole numbers, so we'll make it an integer, and the name of the variable is going to be point value. And we'll go ahead and set this to 1. And that's just going to be the default value. So when we assign this, right away the coin is worth 1. And so we can assign this to, say, a bag of coins, and we'll see it in the inspector, and at least it'll be worth something, but we got to remember to change it to, say, maybe 10 points for a bag of coins. Right. The other thing that we want to do is we're going to create a public variable for an audio clip. That is, this is going to be an actual audio file, and we're going to name this coin sound. There we have it. Save this. Now let's go to our player controller. So currently we have our onTriggerEnter method, which is checking for the pickup, and it's calculating our points and displaying them. So what we're going to do, well, let's see. Yeah, we want to do this. I don't think we've set that up. we are going to do this a little bit differently for this. So for right now, we don't need this onTrigger method. Instead, we do need a display points method. So void display points. So what we want to do for our display points method, we want to get our text here, our variable that we created, display points, which is our variable that knows is the UI now. And we have to say dot text equals, and we're going to set this to our points. But the one thing that we want to do is maybe we want to have a title with it. So in this case, we could put a string text and say, I want it to say points, semicolon, space, and then I want it to actually show what the score is. So in this case, I can just add the points variable, and then one way of showing this would be this is text right here is a string. So this variable points is an integer. So what we're going to do is use a method called toString in parentheses and then semicolon. So it's going to take our points and convert it to a string and put it with this. Now currently it's not calling this method. So if we want to call this method, what we could do is copy this and go up to our start, save this, there we go. We can click play, and you'll see it goes to points 0, 1. Now because we deleted that part, it's not doing anything right now. Okay, so that's fine. Okay. So we know it's working. I'm just going to go ahead and delete this method call because we don't want to call it in start. So I'm going to save that. I'm going to hide my update for right now, my enforce speed, and move player. So now we have display points. Now what we're going to do is we're going to go to our coin. And in our coin pickup script, we are going to write our onTrigger method. We're going to do onTrigger enter. I'm just going to delete the private there. And so what we want to do is we want it to check for the player, go to the player controller script, and we want it to display the points. So the first thing that we have to do is when the player comes into contact with the trigger, right, it collides with the coin pickup. The coin pickup first needs to know that it is the player. So what we could do is let's do other dot get component. What this is doing is whatever collides with the coin pickup, we want to get the component player controller, which is the script. This is the name of the script on the player. And then we put our parentheses, and because this get component is a method, so we have our parentheses and then we end our statement. Now, we're going to assign this to a variable so that we can use that to also access the different parts from that player controller script. So what we're going to do is in front of that, we're going to assign this to a variable. And the variable in this case is the player controller, because that's the name of the script. And we're just going to have the name of this variable, that's the data type, and the name of the variable we're just going to call it player. So we're getting the component, the script, player controller, and we're assigning it to this variable player. Then what we want to do is, in case we don't want to run into a null error, so one way to make sure we don't run into a null error is we can say, hey, we want to make sure that the player has the player controller script on it. So we're just going to say if player is not equal to null, which is another way of saying nothing. So if the player is not equal to null, then continue. So that will check that there is, the player controller is on it. So now what we want to do is player dot, we need to get the points from the player. So if we type in points, it's not recognizing it, and it gives us an error. It says player controller dot points is inaccessible due to its protection level. We go back over to our player controller script, scroll to the top, we'll see that points is just serialized. It's private. So we need to access that and change it. So we're going to change this to public so that we can, our other script can get to it. We'll save that, go back to our coin script. Now if we delete this, you can see we can type it in. It recognizes, oh, points. It's on the player controller script. So points. Now, what we want to do is we want to add our point value. So we have to, if we use the equals sign, we are assigning the point value. And we don't want to just assign the point value. What we want to do is add the point value to it. So we could do, points plus point value, or the shorthand would just be to put a plus symbol in front of the equals. So it's going to say, hey, take the points that is on the player script and just add this point value to it. And that will be your new point integer that will be displayed on your score. We have that now. Then the next thing that we want to do is we want to play the coin sound effects. We want to display the points, and then we want to destroy our coin object. Now, if we're destroying our coin object, there are a few ways we could do this, but we may not want to put the audio, playing the audio directly on this coin. There would be a few other things that we have to do. So one way that we could do this is actually play the sound using a method on the player. So what we could do is go over to our player controller script, and this is just good practice. So underneath display points, we're going to create another method, and this is going to be a public method, and we're going to call it play sound. And play sound. Now we're going to require something. This is a parameter or a condition here, which means we're going to require that when you call this method, you have to put an audio clip inside the parentheses when you call the method, so it'll play that audio clip. And you'll see what that means here in a second. Whoops. No semicolon there. We'll put our curly braces. So when we play sound, we're going to need to execute playing that audio file. So that's going to require first that we put an audio source component. So the camera has an audio listener, like you're listening, and then you need an audio source, which is kind of like a speaker. So on the player, I got to select my player object. I'm going to add component and type in audio, and then source. So this is like our speaker, and you can see while it's on our player, this is like a speaker that will play a sound. Now it says none because we don't want to assign a default. So now we have the audio source component on here. Let's go to our script. Now we need to access that audio source. And that's pretty easy. So right where we were getting the rigid body, underneath that we can go ahead and click audio sources, the data type. We'll just name this, maybe we want to name it speaker. Most of the time I just call it audio source, but we can name it speaker. Then in our start method, what we want to do is underneath that we're going to say speaker equals, we're going to do get component audio source. Now we are actually getting the audio source right off of our player that has the script on it. We can save this. And you know what, when we start the game, we do want to display our points right away. So that way we know we have 0 points. So you know what, on start, we'll also go ahead and put display points, semicolon. And maybe just to make this a little bit more clean, we could cut this out and paste it at the top. So we're setting our points to 0, getting our rigid body, getting our audio source, and then our display points. So we're assigning the audio source component to this speaker variable. So now we can go back to our method here, play sound, and now to access that we can just say speaker, and that gets that variable, the audio source, and we could say dot play one shot, and you can read the description right. It plays an audio clip and scales the audio source volume by the volume scale. That's if we wanted to put that parameter in there. For right now, we're just gonna do what we're gonna pass in, whatever the audio clip is. So this is kind of like I like to call them kind of like placeholders. So this requires that we have to have some sort of audio clip to run this method. So we'll save this, and you got to make sure it's public. And we'll go back to our coin pickup script. So play coin sound. So what that looks like now is we'll go player, because that's going to get our player controller script, and we can simply call that method now play sound. In parentheses, remember we have to specify, okay, we want to play that sound, what sound file, what audio file are we playing? What is the audio clip? So in this case, it's just the variable we created up at the top. So it's like a variable inside a variable inside a variable that we're calling inside a method on another script. So now we can save this. Now we don't actually have a sound, so it may give us an error since we don't have a coin sound yet, but that will work. So now we need to do our display points method as well. Go ahead and pause the video and go ahead and I will challenge you to see if you can go ahead and do the same thing for display points right here. How would you do that? So pause the video and take on that challenge. So hopefully you tried that out. What that looks like is in our player controller, our display points method needs to be public first because we're going to access that. We save this. Then we're going to go to our coin pickup. So to display the points, we got to go to the player. And we'll call that method display points and in parentheses. And that's semicolon, and that will call that method. So it means every time that the player collides, makes contact with the coin pickup, it's going to play the sound and then display the new points, because it's going to add the point value and then it needs to display that new value. And then to destroy this coin pickup object is pretty simple. After we've done all of those instructions, we can then just say, okay, destroy yourself, destroy the coin, which is the game object that this script is attached to. So we can just say destroy the game object. This will destroy the coin. So we'll save that. Come back over to our game and play test. So here we have it. And if I turn on my console here, when I run into the coin, there we go. I'm going to pause this. You can see our error says, hey, play one shot was called with a null audio clip. Remember, null means nothing. So it's telling you, hey, you called this method, but there's no audio clip. There's nothing. It's null. So we can go ahead and turn off play, and we can go to our coin pickup now. You'll see coin sound audio clip. So this is where we would need to put some audio clips into our project and assign it here. So if you have some, you could. We will eventually have an audio pack that you'll be able to download for this series. So for right now, we can just leave that blank. It's just a warning. That's fine. And now we'll go ahead and save our level. And we'll call that a wrap for now, where later on we'll add in some particle effects as well. We'll cover a few cool things on that. So look out for the next video.